we need to talk about Starfield. This game's release has been very controversial, with some absolutely loving it, and some not so much. I'm sure you've heard many opinions and views on the game, and you probably have some of your own as well. There's been a lot of chatter and a lot of disappointment surrounding this title, and it's only been a month. So I'm here today to talk about whether or not Starfield is really as bad as they say after playing it for a whole month. Should you play this game, or is the hate train really one you should happily jump aboard? Well, Sugar Pie, sit back and find out. The reason that Starfield is such a divided topic right now is an interesting one. One I haven't really seen in gaming in a really long time. The Starfield phenomenon is very bizarre because depending on how you look at the game, you can make an argument that it's game of the year, or that it's an awful game that didn't live up to expectations. And regardless of what side you're on, you'd be right. You see, there is an amazing amount of one-of-a-kind things, and also a lot of abysmal shit that seems like it was from a game made in 1997. There's plenty of good and plenty of bad. So much so for both ends of the spectrum that whichever side you decide to focus on is the side you will be on. If you're a Starfield hater and I was able to force you to go into your next play session and focus only on the positives, you would probably have an amazing time. There is more than enough good in this game. People who say that the game is all bad truly are not even trying to look at the good. Same with people who are saying it's absolute perfection. It's not. And again, you can make an equal argument for both sides and you wouldn't be wrong. You may be saying to yourself, JDO, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You could say that about any game. You dumb jackass. Wrong. There are some games that just don't have enough good to outweigh the bad. It's just the way it is. With some games, you sure can try and focus on the good, but it just will never be enough. It's simply a bad game. Same with the good. Some games are so objectively good that even if you only focus on the negatives, you still can't say it's a bad game. Now it's time to share my personal thoughts on the game and my experience with it, now that I've had it for a month. I seem to be one of the only people on this platform that don't despise Starfield. In fact, I love it. I've always been one that can see the good in pretty much any video game. I loved Cyberpunk 2077 at launch, and I still do to this day, and we all know how launch went for that game. But I truly love Starfield. All of the things that people are complaining about, I just don't think are a problem. Example, if I see one more person complain about a loading screen when traveling planet to planet, I might just have to shove my keyboard up my own ass.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
It's just not that big of an issue. Is it a tiny bit inconvenient and annoying? Yes. Are there some side quests that are extremely stupid because it makes you fast travel like 6 times just to talk to 2 NPCs? Yes. But does that ruin the entire, 300+ hour game that is Starfield? No. Not unless it is the only thing you are focusing on. Now, why someone may want to take hours traveling through the empty dark vat of nothingness that is space instead of clicking a button and instantly being at the location you desire, I'm not sure. Is it a bit odd to fast travel as much as you do in this game? Yes. But why would you want to fly planet to planet? The sheer amount of flying as opposed to a 4-second loading screen would be abysmal. Like, what alternative were people wanting? Another very common complaint is how much dialogue there is. People who say that it's boring because of this make a very compelling argument. Until you realize that Bethesda fans literally wanted more dialogue in the games prior to the release of Starfield and begged the company to add more to future titles after Fallout 4 and 76. Fans literally wanted this. Yes, there is a ton of dialogue, and there were times I genuinely was annoyed at the fact that I had talked to one person after another for more than 30 minutes straight with zero action in between. But it doesn't ruin the entire game for me. This is some of the best writing in any Bethesda game, and the stories told are genuinely interesting. As you can see, there are many ways to look at this game, and a lot of people are choosing to look at it as negatively as they possibly can. I don't really know what people were expecting from this game. I don't even think they know, because nothing was false advertised. There weren't a bunch of promises made that weren't fulfilled. The game is complete. It's not a buggy mess, and it's a heap of fun. Yes, there are some flaws, but show me a game where there aren't. Alright, warning, here are my completely subjective views. I have over 60 hours on Starfield now, and I can honestly say it's Bethesda's best work. It's a ridiculously immersive RPG that takes its time guiding you through the universe. While slow at times, I feel that it's one of the best experiences I've had in gaming. Yes, the exploration is different from previous Bethesda titles. That's something I don't think a lot of people were really expecting. The game plays very differently than a Fallout or an Elder Scrolls game. But why is that a bad thing? I think people just went into into this game with slightly wrong expectations. They thought it would be just like Fallout or Skyrim, but in a space setting, and it's not. You level up differently, you explore differently, and you upgrade things differently. It's a different game. It's a whole different universe entirely. It's a different entry, people. It shouldn't play the same as the other games. Though there are some widespread concerns that I do agree with, such as the overabundance of dialogue, or the slow burn start to the game, or the fact that there isn't a real map, I was able to easily look past these things. So easily that I didn't really even think they were an issue until I heard all of you bitch about it endlessly. You see, again, I could understand why maybe a couple of people don't like the game for these reasons. There are flaws, but every single person disliking the game to the extent that they dislike it over only these flaws just seems like people are wanting to not like it. People are blowing these aspects of the game so far out of proportion, it's quite insane, to be honest. I've seen so many creators talk about how mind-numbingly boring the game is. If they mean the story, I really can't comment on that. I enjoy the story immensely, but it's very subjective. If you don't, I can't blame you for that. But no, these creators are saying there's no action, no exploration, and that's why it's boring. That's just flat out wrong. The amount of quests I did that took me to an enemy mine or research facility that took 30 minutes to loot or fully clear out is insane. I had countless side objectives and activities that brought on some really interesting action that I loved, as well as main story quests that took me to an intense battle or fight. These creators simply just focused on one small flaw out of the game and acted like it was the entire game. The exploration wasn't bad, you were just literally doing it wrong. And don't even get me started on the invisible walls bullshit. That concept actually blows my mind. The fact that people are mad about this is absurd. If you run for 45 minutes in one direction on a planet, you will hit a wall. Get over it. How in the hell is that a problem? Why would anyone want to be upset about that? The fact that this has caught as much attention as it did showed me how desperate people really were to find reasons to dislike the game. The fact that someone landed, ignored everything on the planet, and just ran for 45 minutes and then hit a wall just to have something to complain about discredits anyone who says that that's an issue. Seriously, by far the most annoying thing that I've heard while listening to criticism towards the game. I can completely understand most of the other major complaints, but if you legitimately are bothered by these invisible walls, you are no longer taken seriously when talking about video games. The thing I find most interesting is that most of the videos talking about how Starfield just isn't that good don't even say that the game is bad. They all make it abundantly clear in the video that it's not a bad game. It just fell short of expectations, which is a completely fair assessment. I cannot argue with you if you feel this way because there are legitimate flaws to the game. But then you look at the comment section of these videos and you see some PlayStation kid that can't even play the game talk about how it's the worst game that's ever been developed because there's a fucking loading screen, and you realize how much people are in love with being dissatisfied. In conclusion, people love to hate. It's a tale as old as time. Negativity breeds views and conversation. It stirs up emotion, which gets you clicks. This was the most anticipated game of the year by far, one people have waited for since 2018. So of course, making a video about how the game isn't even good is going to generate a heap of views and discourse, which is exactly what it did. Every creator and their mom made a video about Starfield and their impressions on it, and they all said the exact same things. There's too many cutscenes when traveling, too much dialogue, and the game just fell flat. I disagree. If you are a fan of Bethesda and you have the ability to not absolutely lose your fucking mind, and I mean really freak out and spontaneously combust over a loading screen when you want to leave a planet, you'll love Starfield just like I do. If this game came out before it was a trend to hate every single AAA title, no matter what, people would say this rivals Skyrim. Because in my subjective opinion, it absolutely rivals Skyrim. The exploration is totally different, but just as fun. There is an abundance of content and quests to go on. The main story is far more interesting in my opinion, and the character progression is so fun in its own unique way. There's so much room to build the character that you want. My experience with Starfield was overwhelmingly positive, and I could go on far longer about the good things than the negative ones. There are so many new mechanics in this world that Bethesda gave us, and it has my mind completely obsessed with it. This game is one of a kind. Are there flaws? Of course there are flaws. But does that mean it's boring, not worth playing, or worth even half of the negativity it's getting? Not in the slightest. The game is wonderful. Just try your hardest not to hate the tiny little things, and you'll see how amazing it really is. Speaking of gaming, be sure to go ahead and check out this video, and if you enjoyed the content, make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.